Hello to all of you. Well, it's Scott Picken, CEO and founder of Migrate, and I want to bring you this weekly wealth insight. And it's an interesting one. A lot of people, when they think of successful and wealthy people, they think that, they just had all the luck, or they were, born into a great family, or, they went to the right school or the right university. And, really, I think it's complete rubbish, actually. And what makes me think of it is that, when I look at my own 20-year journey of being in business, and more recently in the last 15 years of entrepreneurship, there have been some very, very tough times. And when I think of it, something I always remind myself of is two different things that when those tough times are there. The first one is that Tony Robbins says that business and being able to do anything, and that could be your job, it could be your own business, it doesn't really matter. It's 80% psychology and 20% execution. And some would argue that it's even more than that. And equally, whenever I find myself in a difficult situation where things are just not going your way, or you're not getting the luck, I remind myself of Richard Branson when he had Virgin Atlantic. And according to the story, basically Lloyd's Bank pulled the plug on his financing. So it was $500 million in the early 1990s, and they gave him 1 week, 7 days to find an alternative funder. And whenever my problems, whatever my problems are, I just remind myself of that situation. When I'm feeling anxiety or fear or concern or worry, I just remind myself of that situation and think, how the hell did he deal with it? Those are the type of challenges. But he did deal with it, and he found a bank to finance him. And I think we all know the story. The man's gone on to build $8 billion companies in 8 different sectors. So, my wealth insight is that sometimes it doesn't always go according to plan, and 80% is psychology. And I wanted to recommend this book because this book, Think and Grow Rich, has been basically, it was written in 1937 by Napoleon Hill, and it has been more millionaires have accredited this book to their success than any other book written in the last 100 years. If you look at any self-help person, any coach, any mentor, anyone in the world, it generally resonates from this book. And this guy, Napoleon Hill, went out and something, I can't remember exactly, but over like 20 years, he went and interviewed, 20, 30 years or something, the most successful people of the time, the Rockefellers, the Andrew Carnegies, etc. And he put it all together in this little book. And I read this book first in my early 20s, and I've read the book, physically read the book 3 times. If you look, you can see here, you can see when I've read a book, because it's got my notes all the way through it, where I've dog-eared pages and, etc. You can see all my notes, through the book. I've also listened to it as an audiobook. So, if you've got a phone, there's an app called Audible. So Audible, AUDIBLE.com. You can actually click on the link below. And, this is a fascinating thing, because a lot of people will say, oh, I don't have time to read. Well, if you've ever got time, you're running, you're in the gym, you're cycling, you're driving in your car, well, then you can listen. And this really changed my life, because this allowed me to get access to so much more knowledge. I mean, I'm listening to Gary Vee, crushing it. He's one of the top social media people in the world at the moment, and one of the biggest influencers. And I'm listening to how he's doing it and what he's doing. I went for an hour-long run this morning, and I got that knowledge, from him while running, basically. And so, just as a funny note, I ran Comrades. I've run it 3 times, which is the longest ultra marathon in the world, a day race. And I failed the first time, and which was really quite difficult for my ego. I ran 61 Ks and then got terrible cramps, and I just couldn't continue. But I made a commitment to myself that I would come back and I would do the up and the down run, which I did. And when I did the down run, I finished with 21 minutes to spare. But it was the up run that caused me to fail the first time. And so when I did the up run the next time, you can guess what book I listened to. Think and Grow Rich. It's a 12-hour book. The race, you've got 12 hours to finish it. And I finished it in 11 hours and 56 minutes, listening to the book the entire time. And so this wealth insight, it's a little bit longer. But when you've got challenging times, remember that success, wealth, creating the life that you want, is 80% psychology and 20% execution. And don't forget about these tools like Think and Grow Rich, like Audible. If you want to get a copy, you can actually get, no one's got an excuse anymore for not having Think and Grow Rich. It's free. You can get a free PDF on the internet. You can even get free audio because it stood the test of time. That's Scott Picken signing out for this week. If you do find this of value, subscribe to this channel. I bring these wealth insights every single Friday, and share it with your friends. We want to empower 1 billion people. The only way we're going to empower 1 billion people is if we share the knowledge. There's absolutely no point in the knowledge staying only with the top 1%. We need to disseminate the knowledge to all you and I, the 99%, and allow us the knowledge, the self-belief, so that we can also execute and get the same results as the top 1%. See you next week. Cheers.